CEO Mark Zuckerberg admitting in a letter to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan that the Biden-Harris administration pressured Facebook to censor Americans' COVID content, vowing that it would reject similar efforts from any administration going forward. Zuckerberg also said that he regrets suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story ahead of the 2020 election, saying, quote, "It's since been clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we should not have demoted the story." Vice President Kamala Harris's deputy campaign manager, Rob Flaherty, was deeply involved in the administration's effort to control the political narrative on COVID and other issues. He previously served as the White House Director of Digital Strategy, and he helped lead the push to target alleged misinformation. Joining me now is North Carolina Congressman Greg Murphy, a member of the House Veterans Affairs, Ways and Means, and House Administration Committees. He's also the co-chair of the GOP Doctors Caucus. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining me once again.
Good morning. Good morning.
Your reaction to what has gone on here played out exactly the way many of us expected it to. That, yes, Facebook and other social media companies censored information.
I think Zuckerberg's finally getting tired of being pulled before Congress. But what you see, and you pointed out that Harris's deputy chief was doing this, is that we're seeing a repeated pattern of government censorship. We saw this during the pandemic. We had Fauci come up with a monolithic view. There's only one way to treat one disease, and it's destroyed medicine. I will tell you that. So much censorship going on in medicine. And if people will not wake up and see what the future with a Harris administration would hold. Again, the identity politics has assumed the entire part of the campaign. But we saw suppression after suppression after suppression. And there's no reason whatsoever to think that this would not continue under a Harris presidency.
Yeah, I mean, Harris is finally agreeing to a sit-down interview. It's going to be pre-taped, however, with CNN's Dana Bash after 38 days of nothing. She's been on the ticket now, the top of the ticket for 38 days, and she hasn't sat for one interview. She hasn't done any press conferences. This will be her first interview since she moved to the top of the ticket last month, Congressman. She's going to be joined by her running mate also, Tim Walz, so she can't do it alone, apparently. After reportedly saying, Kamala said, quote, she doesn't need to do a big showy interview. You wrote on X last month that with Walz joining her, quote, it's clear that Kamala's team has no faith in her. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think they don't have any faith in her coming up and speaking before a live microphone. My God, how many examples do we have of word salad after word salad after word salad that she barely can put together a coherent sentence? Yeah, she's going to bring her running mate along basically to fill in for her because he's a very vibrant speaker. That's the truth. But the sad fact is this woman has never put anything together as far as being a leader, making good, coherent decisions, forward-thinking decisions, and being able to lead a nation, being the most important political seat in the world. This is just a absolute sham that the Democratic Party is pulling over the hood of the American people. It is tragic. She's the least qualified person to ever be a political nominee for president.
And so what do you attribute these tight polls to then? I mean, these polls have them neck and neck across the country, even though, most people have no information in terms of, or no real conviction in terms of what Kamala Harris believes and what policies she would implement in the next 5 years should she get the opportunity.
It is two words, Maria. It's identity politics. It's because she's a woman. It's because she's, a particular race. That's what it is. And yes, there is a factor of people would rather vote for a dead goat than vote for Donald Trump because he evokes so much emotions with them. They would pick anybody, and that is being evidenced by these polls. It's pulling out identity politics and the dislike of Donald Trump. Now, this is a question I ask my liberal friends is, do you hate Donald Trump that much where you want to destroy the country? She has a pattern of Marxist beliefs, Marxist behaviors. Do we honestly believe that's going to change in a presidency? These things that she's talking about with the border wall now, I fully believe and fear that she would on day one reverse any of the reforms that the Biden administration has been forced into over the last 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
I just have no faith in this woman being able to lead the country.
And then there's the China policy. We don't know how she would approach China, but we know that Tim Walz has had adoring comments about the CCP and about communism. Yeah. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is holding a second day of meetings in China this week. He's with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. and other top officials in Beijing today. Sullivan's trip could lay the groundwork for another potential summit between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden before he leaves office in January. That will do nothing because he's going to be on his way out. I mean, meanwhile, the Washington Post is reporting that CCP-backed hackers have deeply infiltrated at least 2 U.S. internet service providers in recent months to spy on users, meaning spying on American citizens or American business. Congressman Murphy, your thoughts on what this ticket, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, would mean for our relations and approach to communist China?
Well, I think the Biden administration and Joe Biden, literally since the Afghanistan debacle, has shown the world that he's weak. He wants appeasement. He doesn't want peace through strength. And that is echoed through the halls of Beijing. And him going out and doing something now, to your point, is just ridiculous. But they understand that we now have two people, one a present president and one a possible president, that are absolutely weak. They do not know how to negotiate. Like Trump or not Trump, he knew how to negotiate. He knew how to do it through strength. And so going over there now, they only know they want one world Chinese policy, and that's what's going to happen if we have a Harris presidency. I think they're licking their lips, Putin and Xi. That if Harris became president, that they would be able to literally roll over the United States. Jake Tapper, I don't think they're walking over with anything that they can force the Chinese to the table to bring them back towards reasonable policy, reasonable world policy, reasonable South China Sea policy. I feel their entire foreign policy administration has been absolutely negligent.
Well, Congressman, you were among the first to come on this program and say, look, Joe Biden is getting jacked up with something and he's not all there and he's going to have to step down. And that's exactly how this played out. What are your thoughts in terms of how all this has played out? I mean, Kamala Harris was obviously selected by the Democrat Party. She was not elected, but she is, in fact, the nominee.
Yeah, this was an absolute coup by the Democratic Party. And believe me, I don't think Kamala was the first choice for the Democrats. I mean, look at her record while she was vice president. She had the lowest rating of any vice president in the country. But they knew they had to pick her because there would be an outroar within the minority community if they did not. Sadly enough, I think so much of this has been Pelosi engineered. She's most deceptive person that I've ever seen in itself as far as being politically motivated. This is engineered. You're right, not elected, but anointed. And you talk about the fear of democracy. We had 15 million votes for President Biden thrown out the window, basically with one vote, because Pelosi pressured Biden into doing this. There's no love lost between these. So this has been the biggest coup in American politics, I think, since our founding fathers came in. There was an anointment of who the next president or at least nominee would be. It's tragic. It's a slap in the face of our founding fathers and what this country stands for.
Yeah, and now lots of Republicans are removing ineligible voters from rolls. Texas Governor Greg Abbott removing 1 million ineligible voters from rolls as the Republicans try hard to ensure that illegals are not getting registered to vote. Your status check for you, Greg Murphy. What do you think?
Yeah, when it was all back, remember, Maria, when all this was about voter ID was so suppressive, this, that, and the other stuff, and then the votes in Georgia showed it absolutely was not. Now, I guess, the curtain is pulled back. Why did they want all these illegal immigrants? It's to influence the electorate. It's influence the Electoral College. It's to influence elections, and that's what they're doing. Yes, it is illegal for an illegal immigrant to vote, but the onerous and burden is on the state to prove that, and these states are not doing that. You look at California, you look at Michigan, the Secretary of State there had 25,000 dead people, and she refused to take them off the rolls.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge fight, and it's going to be up to Republicans to make sure that illegal individuals who are in this country illegally do not vote in these elections.
All right, we got a spotlight on it, sir. Thank you. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thank you, sir.